What's up, cousins? It's so good to have y'all back here another week on Guns and Butter with your favorite cousin, Kinda G. Now, I hope everybody had a nice chill week and we was able to keep our emotions nice, calm, cool, and collected, and we didn't have to hide a dead body in our bathroom or nothing like that. Because I would really hate to have to talk about one of my family members on my podcast. I'm just playing. Come on in here to this dinner table so we can get into this week's case.
That's what it's all about. Guns and butter, baby.
Now, I'm sure we all have been in a little toxic relationship, a little unhealthy situation. But when that man start cheating on you and he tell you he don't want you no more, baby girl, it's time to go. This week at the dinner table, I'm going to be telling y'all about the murder of 51-year-old Walter Dancy and how his wife Lutrische Dancy thought that she can cover it up and get away with it. Now listen, I looked far and wide, high and low for this man's date of birth, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I even paid for a database to look up people's records, and his date of birth still wasn't on there. So let's just use our imagination on this one, okay? Walter Dancy was 51 at his time of death in 2003. And he was a soldier for the U.S. Army. But he ended up getting injured and having to get sent back home to his hometown in Miami, Florida. When he gets to Miami, he starts working for his family roofing business. And he's doing really well for himself. His family said he loved to party, though. He was the life of the party. And when he was in the room, you knew he was in the room. He was just that big of a personality. And not only was he the life of the party, but he was one of them older men that just did not know how to keep his butt out the club. And he just had to be in a bitch face. I'm talking every time this man went out, he was leaving the club with one of y'all's mamas. He was definitely a big time player in Miami. And the ladies did love them some Walter Dancy. But in 1998, Walter meets a woman by the name of Lutrische Cooper. And she completely catches him off guard. At the time, she was 36 years old and he was about 45, 46. Now, she wasn't his usual type, but it was just something about the way she was out there hustling and grinding in the Miami streets for her kids that just really drew him to her. And she was like a breath of fresh air, the perfect contrast he needed to balance out his playboy ways. So you know he a player. He had to wine her and dine her and charm the pennies right off of her. And after 2 years of dating, in 2000, Walter decided it was time to put a ring on it. And to his family's surprise, everybody's looking around like, Walter, is you really about to marry her? Like, this ain't your usual type. But Walter didn't care about none of that. He was ready to settle down, and he loved him some Lutrische. So Lutrische was originally born Lutrische Cooper, and she was born in Miami, Florida. Y'all, I thought my name was bad, but listen to how her mama spelled her name. Lutrische. Lutrische. Anywho, she was born August 15th, 1962 in Miami, Florida. And she grew up with both of her parents in the working class neighborhood of Little Haiti. Her daddy, Joe Cooper, was the breadwinner. He went to work every day. He paid all them bills. And her mama was the homemaker. Now listen, her parents had 9 kids. So her mama had to make sure all 9 of them was clothed, fed, bathed. She made sure everything on the home front was taken care of. So compared to all of her other siblings, Lutrische was the wild, rebellious, and stubborn child. But she stayed determined, and she always had that hustler mindset. But when she was only 10 years old, she contracted a rare blood disease that paralyzed her entire body. And she had to learn how to walk and talk all over again. Her family didn't know if she was going to make it, but by the grace of God, she overcame the disease. And after she got well, she started feeling like she only had one life to live. So she was like YOLO out in them streets. And at the tender age of 12, she started having sex. And you already know how this goes. She young, dumb, being fast, not using protection. She ends up getting pregnant. And she gave birth to this baby at only 13 years old. But sadly, the baby didn't live very long. So after she beat death and escaped almost becoming a mother at the age of 13, she said, Lord, it's time to turn my life over to you. So she joined the church choir and she started getting involved in every school sport she could. She was running track, playing basketball, softball, soccer, you name it. She was really a jack of all trades when it came to them school sports. But by the time she made it to high school, she was back on her bullshit. She started hanging out with the older crowds, trying to fit in and be cool. And because they was a little bit older than her, they had access to all the good shit. So she started drinking, smoking weed. Her little young ass even tried cocaine. Listen, smoke a little weed in high school, okay, I understand. But cocaine, that's where I draw the line. And this is about the time when Lutrice's battle with drug addiction begins. So after she started experimenting with drugs, her family started to notice she was becoming really withdrawn and antisocial, and she just wasn't the same Lutrice that they knew and loved. And by 18, she attempted suicide for the first time. And although this was the first time, it wouldn't be the last time that she attempted. But in 1988, just when she's starting to get her life back on track, she meets a little hot Rastafarian by the name of David. And of course, her little hot ass ended up getting pregnant. And from there, you already know the hood lullaby. First comes love, then comes baby in the baby carriage, and then comes marriage. But throughout her entire pregnancy, she was getting high, she was on drugs, she was on that crack cocaine. And it was really hard for her to maintain her sobriety, even while pregnant. So she wasn't able to carry her baby full term. She was born a preemie, 1 pound, 3 ounces, and her name was Muaya Charles. So, after you give birth to a baby, they run all types of tests to make sure the baby's okay. Now, as you would imagine, they found all types of drugs in Muaya's system. So this rose red flags not only with the hospital and the medical system, but you already know, social services. So we already know when social services gets involved, you in a whole nother ball game. So being that the baby had so many drugs in her system, the doctors didn't even know the names for half of them. The social worker pretty much said, look girl, you can either get your shit together now or we can just go ahead and take your baby. So she ended up trying to take the steps to get her life together and getting admitted to a rehab facility. But rehab just really wasn't working for her and she kept relapsing. And over the next couple of years, she would give birth to 2 more babies. But guess what, y'all? She's still on drugs. She didn't give up the drugs. She just wanted to have her babies. And after having her 3rd child, she finally hits rock bottom. And she decides it's time to get serious and get her life together. So the first step she takes is moving into a rehab facility called The Village. And this was cool because she was able to bring her kids. It was a rehab facility for mothers. So she didn't have to give her kids to anybody. She was able to take care of her responsibilities while she was getting her life on track. And after 13 months in the rehabilitation facility, she finally graduated from a program. And from there, she just emerged a stronger, more determined woman. She was ready to be involved in her kids' lives. And she actually stuck with her shit and she did just that. And coming up on her kids' school year, she didn't miss a single school function. She made sure she was at every parent breakfast, talent show, school play. If they needed a parent to come in and volunteer with chaperoning, she was there. She was at their school so much that she actually won Parent of the Year. She pretty much turned into furniture at this school. That's how often she was there. And in 1996, she's still hanging on to her sobriety. She's trying to do things differently. She's trying to make sure she doesn't fall back into old patterns. And the only thing that's threatening her sobriety right now is her husband, David. David was still on his same old bullshit. He wanted to drink, smoke, and in order to maintain her sobriety, she just could not be involved with him anymore. So they went their separate ways, and she continued on her journey in a more positive direction. But 2 years later, in 1998, Lutrice is still on good track. She's still involved with her children. She's still on track with her sobriety. And just when she thought life couldn't get any better, she meets a nice chocolate, dark-skinned, handsome man by the name of Walter Dancy. Now, he a little bit older than her. So his kids is grown. He got a good job. He's respectful, hardworking. The only thing is, he's a whore. And she's well aware of his reputation in the streets. But she don't care about none of that because he loves her and her kids. And he takes good care of all of them. So she finna do everything she can to keep her man, including letting him continue to sleep around on her. Hey, as long as you taking care of home, you could do what you want to do out in them streets is pretty much what she was saying. So the same year that Lutrice and Walter got married in 2000, she had also gotten pregnant. But unlike her first marriage, she ended up having an abortion and she didn't give birth to her and Walter's baby. So according to Latrice, after she had an abortion, Walter started getting really violent with her. And the reason why these violent attacks were never reported was because every time she would call the cops, they would show up, Walter would go out and talk to them, and of course nothing would ever happen to him, but she would always end up in the hospital the next day. Now this wasn't the ideal, perfect relationship, but it seemed to work for them. Walter was taking care of the house, making sure her and the kids was straight, so she was willing to look past all the shit that he was doing out in them streets. But after only 3 years of marriage, Latrice was tired of being cheated and beat on, and she started to slip into a really deep depression. And for a recovering addict, this was the worst thing that could have possibly happened. Latrice started reverting back to her old ways of coping, and before she knew it, she was back on that rock. So on Friday, October 3rd, 2003, Walter's brother Bill walks into the police station to report him missing because he hasn't been seen in 2 days. Now, Walter is very close with all of his kids and his siblings, so the fact that ain't nobody heard from him in 2 days, something's definitely up. Not only that, but he works a 9 to 5, and he shows up to work every day, ain't missed a beat. So everybody's trying to figure out where he is. So down at the police station, Walter's brother is letting them know that nobody's heard from them, not even his wife, and everybody's concerned about his whereabouts. He's like, give me 1 second, let me call his wife so she can explain what's going on. So he calls up Latrice. Latrice gets on the phone, and she's like, hold on, brother-in-law. Yeah, I got the police here right now. I'm trying to file the report as we speak. So while she's filing the missing report at home, she has his kids and a couple of other family members there as well. So while Latrice is filing the missing person report, she lets the police know that the last time she seen Walter was on Wednesday night. She said he came home drunk after a night out with his homeboys at around 10 p.m. And when he got home, he was all riled up, she was riled up, and they got into a heated argument. And dead ass in the middle of the argument, he answers a phone call. And shortly after the phone call, she hears a honk outside. Walter leaves, and that was the last time she saw him. She says she doesn't know who picked him up. She didn't even see what kind of car it was. All she seen was headlights. And she throws in there, he probably got picked up by one of his little hoes. So after she tells him this, the police are like, all right, ma'am, we got all this information down. He is a grown man, and he probably did leave with another woman to blow off some steam. So we're going to give it a couple days and see if he shows up. But while the police are there, they go ahead and take a look around the house. They don't see anything noticeably out of place that could have possibly occurred from a domestic squabble. There's no blood splatter. Everything seems to be normal. So they leave the residence and let Latrice continue on with her chores. Meanwhile, down at the police station, Walter's brother Phil is giving the police almost the exact same statement that Latrice just gave them. He tells them that Latrice called the family this morning asking if anybody has seen Walter. But of course, nobody has seen him. So she tells them that they got into an argument. He got a phone call. She heard a honk. He left. That was the last time he was seen. And then he throws in there that he probably got picked up by a woman as well. So the police are thinking, okay, he's probably just blowing off some steam. He was sick of his home life with his wife. He went to go see one of his other lady friends. So in addition to Latrice's initial statement, then Walter's brother's statement, they want to go ahead and speak to one of Walter's kids. So they bring in one of his sons. And he too gives damn near the same statement that the last two just gave. But he also says he most likely did leave with another woman to go blow off some steam. But it's been over 48 hours. And I know for a fact my daddy can be in his dead sleep. But if I call that phone, he gonna pick up. So I know something ain't right. So being that everybody knew Walter was a ladies' man and he was sleeping around on his wife, and the 3 people closest to him said he most likely got picked up by a woman, police want to figure out who this mystery woman could be. And cousins, you already know what they did. Yeah, they subpoenaed them phone records. Latrice did say that he received a phone call right before being picked up and disappearing. And if he was having an affair with some mystery woman, his phone will be able to show proof of this. So while they're waiting for his phone records to get back, they start hitting the streets trying to speak to any of his friends from the neighborhood. And they end up stumbling upon a popular corner where he was known to hang out at. And while they're there, they speak to one of his old partners from back in the day. And luckily for them, this man had all the tea on Walter. He ends up telling them that the woman that Walter was sleeping around with, her name is Martine Devine. And not only does he know her name, but he also knows that she lives in Little Haiti with her husband. They're like, their mistress is married. All right, maybe the husband found out she was sleeping around on him and he did something to Walter. They don't know what to believe right now, but they want to track this Martine Devine down so that she can answer some of these questions that they have. So of course they track this woman down, and she's able to confirm that she was sleeping with Walter, and Walter was well aware that she was married. But none of that mattered because she and her husband had been separated for about 6 months at this time. And besides, she didn't start messing with Walter until after they separated. So at this time, they want to start picking her brain. They like, okay, so how you feel about Walter being married? And she's like, I didn't have no problem with Walter being married. Like I said, I was married too. We both knew what was going on, but we was both trying to figure out our situation. And I didn't care nothing about him and his little marriage. He was getting ready to leave his wife anyways. Not only does she spill this tea, but she says, look, y'all, I got some more information about his wife that you might want to hear. She says, according to my baby Walter, his wife was a struggling drug addict, and she's been struggling for years now. But you see, my baby Walter is a player, and she ain't built for this lifestyle. So when he started cheating on her, she blamed him for her having to turn back to them drugs. And my man is a provider, so he takes care of her and her kids. So she was using all his money to go pay for drugs, so he had to hide the money. But you see, Walter was a good man. He didn't want to leave her and her kids, but he was tired of her and her drug addiction, so he was planning to leave her. She does go on to say that the last time she seen Walter was over a week ago. She says she hasn't seen her man because she's been down in Tampa visiting her sister, and she didn't even make it home until Thursday afternoon. They reached out to her sister to corroborate her story, and everything checked out. So at this point, they were back to square one with trying to figure out where Walter disappeared to. At this time, Walter has been missing for about 3 days now. And while detectives are trying to figure out where he disappeared to and who he disappeared with, Lutrische is going through it in her neck of the woods because she is trying to cover up the fact that she's the one that made this man disappear. Okay, so I'm going to rewind y'all back to October 1st, and then I'll bring y'all back to real time. It'll all make sense. Just follow along, okay? So on Wednesday, October 1st, it's around 10 p.m. Walter's just getting home from the club and partying with the fellas, and he's lit right now. And Lutrische wants to have a conversation. But it's late, he drunk as fuck, he just want to go into bed and lay down. So Lutrische starts getting on his ass. Nigga, where the fuck you been? Why you always lying? I'm tired of you cheating on me. Give me some money. Yap, 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 yap. She going in on him. He like, woman, shut up. He brushes her off, and he takes his happy ass to the bedroom so he can go to sleep. And him doing this didn't do nothing but further piss Lutrische off. And she needs something to calm down. She needs something to numb her feelings. She needed a hit of something to calm the nerves she was having right now. Walter had already hid all the money in the house, and he wasn't trying to come off no more money for her. So she skips her little tail outside, and she starts going through Walter's car. She looking up under the seat. She looking in the middle console. She looking everywhere. But when she hits that glove compartment, she sees a little manila envelope. And she like, ooh, can't nothing be in here but some money. So she opens it up. But instead of money, she sees a stack of photographs of Walter sucking and fucking and licking and doing all types of nasty, freaky shit to women. Her head is spinning right now. She said, I know good and well this man ain't out here fucking on every bitch in Miami, unprotected, and having the nerve to bring his ass back home to me every night. Oh my God. Oh my God. At this point, Lutrische lost it. She stormed back into the house so damn fast, and out of all the weapons in the house, she picks up the shotgun. She walks into the back bedroom where Walter is sound asleep. The harp is playing, and he's just so peaceful. And with the muzzle of the gun, she taps this man awake. Wake your ass up. And you know he only been asleep for a hot minute, so he still got that drunk daze on him. He looking through one eye. He like, Lutrische, what you doing? Come on now, go to bed. We can talk about this later. But she's standing firm, and she's still got the muzzle of the gun pointed directly at him. So he like, man, stop playing. Get that gun out of my face. And she ain't moving a muscle, but the blood in her body is still pumping red hot through her veins right now. So he calls her bluff. He said, you crazy, stupid bitch. You don't even know how to use that motherfucker. And she said, oh yeah, I can show you better than I can tell you. With the shotgun aimed center mass at Walter's chest, she pulls the trigger. He stares at her blankly for a good 2 seconds and then drops to the floor. But Latrice says to her surprise, there was no blood splatter. She doesn't know if it was because he was drunk and how his body absorbed the bullet. She don't know. But before anybody could notice that she just shot this man, including her 3 children who are in the house, she wraps him up in some black trash bags and stuffs his lifeless body into the closet until she can figure out what to do next. So the next day is Thursday, October 2nd. Latrice gets up. She wakes her kids up as usual. She gets them ready for school. She tells them Walter left. Don't ask me no questions. He's gone, okay? As soon as she sends them kids off to school, she goes back into the house. She sits down at the computer and she starts playing solitary all day until she figures out what to do with Walter's body. So after she didn't set up and play solitaire all day, by Friday, she's in full-blown panic mode. She's like, what do I do? What do I do? So she reaches out to Walter's family and tries to act dumb as hell. She's like, hey, is Walter over there with you? The last time I seen him, we got into an argument on Wednesday night, and he answered the phone. I'm pretty sure it was one of them bitches he was messing with. And then when he hangs the phone up, I hear a hunk outside, and he leaves. I'm standing there looking dumb in the living room trying to figure out why he keep doing me like this. Has anybody seen him? And they like, no, we ain't seen him. But if he been missing for 2 days, I'm going to go down there to the police station and report him missing. And she like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a report too. So when his brother goes down to the police station to report him missing, she calls the cops to do the same thing. But instead, they come over to her house. She got his kids over there and a couple of other family members. All the while, Walter is still wrapped up in trash bags in the closet, dead as a doorknob. And you know what she did? She went ahead and reported that man missing. Okay, so all of this happened on Friday, day 2. Now, Saturday, day 3, Walter's body is now going through full-blown decomposition, and he's starting to give off a real funky odor. So after that dead corpse smell started to seep up from underneath that closet door, she's like, okay, I got to figure out what to do with this body. So she sends her 3 kids to stay with a friend, and she heads down to the hardware store. While she's down there, she grabs 2 gallons of hydrochloric acid, some gloves, and a rake. And to keep this from looking like a suspicious purchase, she goes ahead and throws in a couple of Halloween pumpkins. You know, it's October. She got to be festive as well. Now, when she get back home, it's game on. Operation Get Rid of Walter's Body. Now, when she opens up this closet door, I don't know what she was expecting to see, but this man's body had bloated so damn bad. She then grabs his corpse, drags him into the bathroom, and puts him into the bathtub. And with them 2 gallons of hydrochloric acid, she starts dumping it all over his body. In her mind, she just knew he was about to start melting. His bones was going to start shriveling down. His skin was going to come off. And she was just going to rake him down the drain, take a shower, and Walter was just going to be disappeared. Y'all, his skin started bubbling, fizzing, doing everything but melting. And she starts panicking even harder. She's like, oh my God, what the fuck? And now his body is starting to smell even worse because you got all these chemicals mixed in on top of the bloating, all these gases coming out of him. Yeah, she's in full-blown panic mode right now. So this is when she had to take drastic measures. She goes and gets some lighter fluid. She dumps the lighter fluid all over his body, and she's like, I got this all figured out. Don't worry, I'm going to figure it out. So she sets the man on fire. But because she set him on fire in her house, in her bathroom, where the fuck are the flames going to go? So she opens up the window so the flames could escape. And of course, this is a full-blown fire, smoke and everything coming from this woman's house. Now, she didn't want to alarm her neighbors, So she pulls her barbecue grill over to her bathroom window and she starts barbecuing pounds and pounds of meat. You know, she got to distract them from all this smoke that's coming from the inside of her house. She being real inconspicuous now, ain't she? But between the acid and trying to burn him, none of that worked either. She was still stressed out. She going through it right now. She's like, oh my God, he's still here. Fuck! So she runs out to the dollar store and buys the whole aisle of air fresheners, plug-ins, Febreze, everything that's gonna make this house smell any better than what it's smelling like right now. But she's losing it, okay? She's looking like a mad woman right now, being real obvious to the neighbors. But nothing was working for Lutrische, and the scent of Walter's dead body was starting to spew out onto the streets of her neighborhood. Now I've never smelt a dead body, a dead corpse, dead nothing, but I high-key want to. Not in a way that excites me or anything like that, but I just want to have something to reference to. Like when people say it smelled like death and it has a very distinctive scent, I want to know what it smells like. But this smell was pungent, okay? And her neighbors was not going for her shit. All of her neighbors was like, yo, she bugging the fuck out right now. So not only does everybody know that Walter's missing, but they see you around here looking crazy, doing weird shit. And on top of that, there's this funky smell coming from your house now. Yeah, I'm calling the police. And that's exactly what her neighbor did. When her neighbor calls the cops, she like, yo, y'all need to get over here ASAP. This woman around here doing things real unusual. She got this neighborhood smoky. She barbecuing pounds and pounds of meat. And it's funky around here. Her husband missing. Y'all need to come over here and check it out. When the cop shows up, he can smell this funky scent in the air too. So he goes up to her house. He knocks on the door. She answers it. But listen, y'all, Lutrische still got this situation all under control. She comes to the door and she's like, hey, officer. Oh, that smell, it's just my sewage backed up. You know, I'm trying to do everything I can to get rid of the smell. I had to send my kids away because I didn't want them smelling it. I had to barbecue. I'm trying to do everything I can to get rid of this smell, but it's the sewage. I understand it's upsetting the neighbors, but I called my landlord. He said he was going to come out in a couple days, but I don't know what more I can do. So this is just a little well patrol officer. He didn't know the extent of the situation and he couldn't really do too much about it. He took her word. He believed her. He goes back and tells the neighbor that it's just the sewage backed up and it should be resolved in a couple days. And he leaves. So when the cop leaves, she's like, whoo, he almost had me there, didn't he? But at this point, she out of options. She couldn't melt him. She couldn't burn him. She couldn't spray him away with Febreze. So her last resort is to get his body out of the house and drive him 2 hours away to the Everglades. But she's like, okay, how am I going to get his body out of the house? She backs her car up as close as she can to her house. She goes next door and she asks one of her neighbors if she can borrow a dolly to move her dead husband. And the neighbor's like, sure. He lets her borrow his dolly. And when she leaves, he's like, wait a minute. Did she just say she was about to use my dolly to move her dead husband? So, of course, the neighbor calls the cops. Like, come on, Lutrische. Are we even using our brain at this point? So she runs back to her house with the dolly. She about to get this plan in motion. But when she gets to the front door, she realizes she locked herself out of the house. And that's how you knew you wasn't meant to get away with this crime, Lutrische. She like, what the fuck? I just could not win. So she breaks down and calls the only man she truly trusts, her daddy. And she says, Daddy, I killed Walter. And he's like, I'm on my way. But when he gets to her house, she's sitting outside on the steps, crying her eyes out. And he like, baby girl, what happened? Daddy, I shot him with a shotgun. He's dead in the bathroom. He says, oh, baby girl, we gotta call the police. She says, no, Daddy, not right now. I gotta go get my babies. So she jumps in the car and dips out. She runs to the bank to cash some checks. She running to go see her kids. She trying to make sure she gets her affairs in order because she knows she about to be locked up for a while. And she wants to make sure she sees her kids one last time and gets them set up so that they can go stay with her daddy. So her dad ends up going over to the same neighbor's house that called the cops earlier. So he asks if he can use her phone to call the cops because his daughter Lutrische just confessed to killing her husband. So she like, oh, hell no. I knew she did something to that man. I knew it. I could smell it. I called the cops earlier and they didn't do nothing. So she calls the cops back. They both tell them what's going on, and the cops immediately send units over to the house. So one of the first responding officers was investigator Ronaldo Garcia, and he says as soon as he got to the house, he can instantly smell decomposition. When the investigators go inside the house, they're able to see just how badly Lutrice was trying to get rid of Walter's body. But after 6 days, this body looked terrible. He had burn marks all over his body from the acid and the fire, and his body bloated so badly that his skin started to stretch and it looked like leather. So inside the house, along with Walter's body, detectives find hundreds of nude photos of women and of Walter doing freaky, nasty things to these women. And they're like, motive? So they wrap up at the crime scene and they get her dad to come down to the police station to get his statement. He tells detectives everything he knows. And he's finally able to get Lutrice on the phone, and he convinces her to come turn herself in. And she's tired of hiding. She knows she's caught. So she follows her daddy's directions and she turns herself in. So when she gets down to the Miami police station, she's of course arrested and she's placed in the interrogation room. She's then interrogated by Sergeant Eunice Cooper.
Well, let me ask you this. Why did you decide to burn him with the acid? Is it because he was smelling?
I just figured he could just burn it. It'd be easy for me to put them in little bags. Put them in bags. And I'm just like, it's not doing anything anyway. It's just making sizzling sounds and stuff going outside of the window.
So Lutrice didn't hold nothing back. She gave a full confession, and combined with all the gruesome crime scene photos, all the evidence that connected her to the crime, and them having a body as well, detectives pretty much had everything they needed to close their case. And on October 6, 2003, only 6 days after Walter was killed, Lutrice was charged with first-degree murder. So Lutrice's trial was set to start in 2005. And her defense lawyer, Sheldon Zipkin, tried to argue insanity. He even went and had her evaluated by a neuropsychologist by the name of Hyman Esteen. So after being evaluated, the psychologist concluded that Lutrice did suffer from major depression with confused thinking, and she lacked the ability to control her anger and behavior. But the psychologist could not diagnose her with being schizophrenic or psychotic. So even though her lawyer was working tirelessly trying to argue an insanity case, it was hard to prove it because Lutrice demonstrated rationality by lying, hiding the body, moving her children out of the home, buying the acid, trying to burn it, buying all the stuff to make it smell good. All of this proved that she knew exactly what she was doing. Now, she may have been running off adrenaline, and she probably was looking a little bit crazy while she was doing it, but she knew exactly what was going on. So right before her trial was set to start, her lawyer explained to her one last time. He's like, look, Lutrice, you can go to trial, and I'm here to fight with you. But it doesn't matter what you say about being a battered woman. As soon as a jury sees all the gruesome crime scene photos of what you did to your husband, it's going to be a wrap for you, baby girl. And you facing life. So I really want you to think about what steps you want to take next. So she thinks on it. And on November 14th, she makes the best decision that she's made throughout this entire case, if I must say. She accepts the reduced sentence of second-degree murder with a 45-year sentence. And the next day, on November 15th, she got just that. She was sentenced to 45 years, and she's currently serving out her sentence in a women's maximum security prison in Florida. Now, for Lutrice, taking that plea deal of 45 years was the best option because at least she has a release date. It's not life. Now, I don't know how good her life expectancy will be, being that she was 41 years old when she was arrested. Add 45 years to that. I mean, I hope she's able to see that release date. All right, fam. That's the end of this week's case on the murder of Walter Dancy. As usual, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week, same place, same time.